Testing. Yes, there I am. Okay, just gonna clean this up a little. Pause. Getting ready to interview my friend, Lisa Nicoll, of Brooklyn, New York, artist, writer, poet, playwright. Really excited. Hello, Jill Woodworth here with Lisa Nicoll. And I'm on episode 3 of Conversations with Friends, this new podcast, and I'm really excited to have her on. We had, both of us had some illnesses that we were scheduled to do it in December, but life happened. And I'm really glad glad we both mutually went through these healing experiences or whatever sickness is and are here today. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Lisa, and then we'll kind of launch into our conversation because we're going to be asking each other questions. I prepared some for Lisa and she for me. So that's what we're going to do. So thanks, Lisa, for being here. I'm going to keep going. Lisa is a multidisciplinary artist known for her work in writing, photography, musical composition, and theater. She explores themes of liminality and the sacredness of space, often intertwining poetry and imagery to create dialogues between the verbal and the visual. Her creative process frequently begins with real-world elements like nature or the home or the human form, evolving them into abstract or representational forms through photography or literature. Her photographic projects include series such as Continuum, Venus, and Angelus, and
yeah, I think that's
is that which delve into themes of sacred geometry, the feminine divine, and the interplay between the celestial and the human. And these works showcase her talent in transforming everyday elements into profound artistic expressions. In addition to visual art, Nicoll's dramatic and musical works have been performed at venues like the York Theatre, Emerging Artists Theatre, and the Oxford Playhouse. Her writing has also been featured in journals such as the Metropolitan Review. She's currently based in Brooklyn, and you're a member of the Dramatists Guild.
Dramatists Guild, yeah.
And your website is Lisa Nicoll, which is LISANICC. Is it CCCOLL?
1C, 2 L's.
1C, 2 L's.com. And I will put all of her links and in the notes for the podcast. So thank you for coming on. I knew Lisa, I met her on well, actually, I kind of met you on Soulogy. I never really formally met you. I think I saw you on like some of the group calls, and yeah, I was really in it, like in my own tunnel then with that, what I was working on there. But then somehow I followed her on Instagram, and I realized just what talent she, or just, I was just drawn to your poetry and your artwork, and just the way that you put them together. I was just so, it was just like something went into me, and I knew I like, my light bulbs went off, and I knew I really wanted to talk to you and have a conversation. So here we are. And thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that awesome introduction, and for going to my website, for looking at my stuff, for
oh gosh,
reading
my pleasure.
things.
Yes, I've got your book, and
I mean, thank you for that. You put things out in the world, and you don't, you learn to just put things in the world and not wait for someone to say something after you've been doing this for a long enough time.
Really?
Yeah, I have. That's been my journey.
Well, that's really cool, because when I put something out, I am like biting my, just like waiting for that first person to like it or to comment. And then even if it's just one person, then I'm okay. I feel like then I'm okay, but I haven't let go. I haven't completely surrendered. Like I'll let go for a little while, but then I'm like, oh, I got to check.
I check, because, well, I always am wrestling with this, because if you are doing something and putting it out in the world, it's because you want to share it, and you don't want to do it in a vacuum. So then you have to learn to balance. I'm still learning it, and it keeps changing. How much do I want back? What am I expecting back? What's my reaction to that? Does it matter? How much do I let something go?
Right.
And it's a weird era because we have these social media things where we can actually see how many people we think we can see how many people,
True.
but that's obscured. And I've had a long relationship with Instagram, which has changed dramatically.
Has
Now
it?
I'm not shown to any, I used to be shown to 8,000 people. Now I'm shown to 98 people and they're just my followers. According to the stats you can read,
Yeah.
which those can even be fabricated. We don't have any real control over it. So when I
Oh, so
first
true.
got into Instagram, and it was still kind of possible to like build a following. So I got really into that and like, how am I going to build a following and work with this and be part of the world and grow my art and grow my brand, a word that makes me want to kill
Oh,
myself.
tell
It's
me.
so dark. It's so stupid. It's so belittling and it's so like it just reduces it anyway. But I was
Right
like,
with you.
well, I am on planet Earth and I do have to pay rent. I mean, if I could pay rent in poems, then everything would be
Ah,
fine and I wouldn't have to do anything. But I have to figure out a way to
yeah.
make money in a way that's sustainable. You know, according to everybody, I should be able to just do this and my following will grow and then I'll monetize, another hideous word. So I like tried that for a time. That kind of thing has never worked for me. Ever,
Same.
ever, ever. Any art form that I've ever done, and I've had lots of them before arriving at, oh, I think what I am is called multidisciplinary. At first I was like, I'm this thing. And then I was like, I am this, I am this,
Really?
this. My whole, yeah, it's been a series of shame spirals and then explosive growths and
Wow.
embarrassment for my family because I look like a jack of all trades. I look very ADD, flibberty gibbet, whatever. And I thought I was, and I checked back in on myself, but you know, there's also another whole world of um, polymaths or
Yes.
multidisciplinarians, and you know, I don't know. I think we have to not, but some people really are just actors or just playwrights.
Yeah.
But when you've got a different kind of makeup, first of all, you won't know that it. My story was I didn't know I had all of this until a couple of years ago.
Really.
Yeah,
So you've
in
had
my awakening.
explosive growth in your awakening. Yeah.
In little bursts. So I'll talk about that because one of your
Okay.
questions was like, how did you become multidisciplinary?
Right.
What's
Let's
your
dig
artistic?
in to the questions here. Yeah.
So
I
I'm
think, yeah, go ahead.
I've always been artist, like in the arts, artistic. As a little kid, I just wanted to be a ballerina. I took ballet, so that was my entry into art, was ballet. My mom,
Ballet. Wow.
I heard music and I would just be dancing all over the place. And I was always in a sort of fantasy world. But I was also the firstborn. I got good grades. I wanted to get good grades. I would read for hours and hours and hours. And um, I wanted to please. If I did not do and get everything instantly, I would have a meltdown. And that I came out like. Neither of my parents treated me terribly and made me be perfect. They were really permissive and encouraging, and everything I did was great. They were like really
Yep.
sweet parents like that. So it's not like I became a weird perfectionist because my parents were horrible. What I think, though, is that I harvested that from each of them. I think they're both that way within themselves. And I think it may have held them back from becoming
Interesting.
artists or engineers or
Wow.
so I think that that can happen. I think one part of evolution is to harvest stuff that's about to go dormant in our family lines from way back.
So
And
because it needs to be kind of brought to the surface and like I want to say aired out and so it can be integrated and not be a what do you call it, like a shadow or whatnot.
yeah, yeah. And when it's that perfectionism thing, I think that was the shadow coming out, and
Yeah.
I still have it, but part of my growth has been to learn how to learn. So I think part of learning different disciplines has been to like, be the child again, or just quiet the monkey mind and see what your limitations are and what your thoughts are of yourself, where you think you should be as an adult versus, I've never done this thing in my life. So I started with ballet and did ballet, tap, jazz from like 5 to about 18 or 20. Then
Wow.
in high school got into in West Boylston, Massachusetts. That's where
Really?
yep.
I was going to ask you if it was in that area.
It was Karen White School of Dance. She was a great
Heard of
dance
it. Yep.
teacher. Yep, right down that little hill. That's where I learned dance. That's where I had my first job. I would assist to pay with the littler kids to pay for my other
Oh,
classes I
nice.
would take. And then I got into theater in high school and stopped doing ballet because my mother was like, we can't be, she had 3 kids and she's like, I can't drive
Yeah.
all of you to everything all the
I can
time.
relate to that.
And I can't buy all these costumes, probably. I mean,
Right. Yeah. Okay.
expensive.
Those things get expensive. Yep.
Those things get really expensive. So I was like kind of tired of dancing anyways, and I did theater, really liked that. But parallel to doing that, I also really loved punk rock. And so that really goes head to head with musical theater. Thus began my inner conflict always, like how
Really.
vanilla and saccharine and stupid musical theater was, and artificial and kind of old school and goody two shoes and no shadow, just in general,
Yeah.
versus the punk rock that I was experiencing in the 80s and 90s that I just loved. And I still
Yeah.
love to this day. It's still my favorite kind of music. I can still anyway. So,
Interesting. Interesting how you're able to put the pieces together now
now
really
I
well.
can. That
Yeah.
was an
Well,
ugly, that's high school was not, there was
oh,
a lot. I mean, I
yeah.
still look back, I have such cringe moments still from then, but now I'm like older, so I'll sometimes find, do you ever do this? Like randomly come across a picture of myself from like age 15 and go, oh my God, what, what a
Yeah.
pretty little girl. And remembering that day when that picture was taken and how ugly and disgusting I felt.
Same. I totally get you. In fact, we just moved, so I had to go through like all this stuff and I was pulling out pictures and feeling those and giving myself like a little love. Like kind of going back and like patting myself on the back like, you made it, you're okay now, but damn, it was
It's rough
very
down
visceral.
here. It's
Yeah.
rough down here on Earth.
In this realm, it is rough
It's
for
it's like
for
really
sense
rough.
or artists or I mean it's for everybody, but I think certain people come in with that open heart and it's a different journey. It's just I don't know. I
Oh,
couldn't
how we
put the
make it.
pieces together either till more recently. So anyways, I didn't mean to hijack what you were saying.
No, no. So I'll just speed and so okay, so then I blah 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 blah. I moved to New York. I quit school halfway because my parents were going through a divorce. So I went to Notre Dame in Worcester for
Oh, you did.
girls' school.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was college prep,
Yeah.
Amherst, Holyoke, Harvard, like all it was that kind of a school.
Yeah.
And it never occurred to me that that wouldn't be my track. But my parents got a divorce, and that began all the cracks. Suddenly there was no money, everyone
Ooh.
was fighting, and I I went to a university, but I left after 2 years because I sided with my mom. I stopped talking to my dad. Suddenly there was no money coming in to pay. I got mostly scholarships, but there was no money coming in to pay for stuff. I was being hauled to the bursar's office.
Oh
I mean, I was
God.
having a nervous breakdown, but I didn't know it. And I'm grateful it was then versus now, because I think I probably would have been medicated a lot and put into places that would have really steered me down a different path. And I'm
Ah,
grateful for this
yeah.
one. But I quit school. And I went full punk rock. I found I found an interview pre-internet. So I found it in some magazine or something with Debbie Harry of Blondie, where she said, I grew up in New Jersey. And I went to New York and I saw the Ramones at CBGB's, and I didn't know who I would be or what I would be. I knew I was an artist, and I knew I just had to get to choke up. I just had to get to New York, and I'd figure out which kind I was.
Wow. Wow. Full chills. That's amazing.
I quit school. I had $200,
Wow.
a cat, and a trash bag full of my shit, and a friend who was driving down for like a viola lesson with someone at Lincoln Center. Like
Uh-huh.
my world was so like poverty, and then like the height of it was very have and have nots. It's like I was just like on this track. I was like have and have not. I didn't know which
Wow.
one I was. And she drove me to New York, and I lived with my cousin who lived on at First Avenue in the East Village. And I just started going and seeing punk rock shows. I got a job at Saks Fifth
Uh-huh.
Avenue. I had
Oh,
2 dresses, and I was
you made
like,
it through.
I made it through. And I only realized recently there was a big like homeless teenager thing going on in New York at the time, which I did not identify with at all. I went to Notre Dame. I grew up in Princeton. And
Right. How could this be? Yeah.
and now I was like, I have $200, whatever. We were never rich, but
Yeah.
like I had friends who were rich, and
Yep.
I knew I was not that, but I had friends who were much poorer. I was middle class.
Yeah, me too.
I thought I was solidly middle class. It was not solid.
That's interesting when the rug like that gets pulled out from under you. And yeah, you realize you're a lot less than you thought you were. Or not less, but I think at that age, yeah.
But it
Wow.
was like a first wake up. Somehow I'm still here. I don't have much more than $200
Neither
still.
do I. So
Somehow I'm here, and I'm learning now to have less shame about that and get more stable in that area. And I don't know. So okay, so let me go. So okay, I keep digressing. Then okay,
it's all good.
I was like, I know I'm gonna act. I want to be an actress
Yeah.
because I'd already done theater and dance, and I
Uh-huh.
got so instead of paying my bills in full, I paid for acting classes and dance classes because that's what you do to make it. And um, I got into some things, I learned some craft, but I didn't ever push through and get agented. And I also had to learn all about the climate of New York. It seems so stupid to me now, but I had no idea that things like there were kids growing up in New York City and just like going to Lincoln Center, going to Broadway, having classes at Steps, which is where all the Broadway dancers teach and where like Broadway dancers go for their classes. That was just where you went for dance class. I didn't know how small town I was because I always was watching movies about New York, and
Yeah.
I was in fantasy. I also didn't know my destiny would ultimately be to wake up and actually be a in a tradition of the mystics. So for a long time, I thought like Debbie Harry, oh, I know the weirdness, the thing I am that sees, that has all this otherworldly.
Yeah.
I never had delusion. I never had like schizophrenic stuff, anything like that. I have people in my family who have, so
Mhm.
I know the difference between an inner vision and knowing what this
Right.
reality is versus that reality. I thank God I haven't had that, because the people in my family and the friends who have that have quite a battle.
Yes.
So
That's a toughie in this realm because
it's a
there's
toughie
really,
in this realm.
I think it can be, I think, well, yeah, it's a whole nother conversation with
Another,
schizophrenia.
yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. But
So, but that world and putting it into, I thought through my 20s and 30s and even into 40s that, oh, the thing I am is an artist, and all I
mhm.
need to do is get with the other artists, and then I can just be myself and
Right.
speak freely. No, no. I would say things and I'd be, when you're just like, oh, when blah, 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 and people are like, oh yeah. Like, oh, when you think you lost your keys, but you're holding them. I would think that I was saying something as mundane as that everyone would be like, oh yeah. But I would be saying things like about the angelic realm and like interdimensional walking when you're lucid dreaming.
Wow.
I thought everybody was doing, they just weren't talking about, as long as they were an artist. Because I would see their art, whether it was a painting or a composition
Ah,
or the way they were acting and what they were able to access as an actor. And I'd be like, oh, they do it.
so you thought they were in that same space that you were, but
I
they,
thought artist and mystic was the same kind of thing. I
well,
really did.
I think it is ultimately, but not
Yes.
everybody has access to that kind of knowing or
And
experience.
and atheism and a mechanistic universe had really, really taken over. So you
Oh, yeah.
remove the God entirely. And God, people hate the word God because they associate it with
Yes,
organized religion. And it's really just a catch-all word that's
it
short.
is.
So here I was writing and talking about God and mysticism and all this stuff. And I found, and I would find with people that I thought it was like tight with and friends with, and they were artists. And I was like, finally, I'm in my tribe and all that
Right.
stuff. I would get things like, okay, and like weird comments about being woo, which are super shaming when you're
Yeah.
just like at a club drinking and dancing and thinking you're cool. So I I was way more of an outsider than I ever knew. And I think that I still am, but now I know that I am one in a way. So, but I was like, I had
Yeah.
jobs. I always like I figured out how to like I had friends who were like astrologers and called themselves psychic and that kind of thing, which I never did. Or I was,
Yeah.
well, that's cool, whatevs. But they like led with being an outsider, and I was like, well, that's not going to get you any. Like that wasn't
That's not practical. That's
germane.
not,
It's not practical. You're
yeah.
pushing people away. Why would you enter a
Yeah.
new space and make enemies? Like,
No, I get that. Yep. You got to come
so
in at a certain, you can't come in out here. Well, you can, but,
you can, and that's some people's
and that's cool.
that's
Yeah.
some people's deal, and it was not mine. Like I was very so then so blah blah blah. So I went into so I wrote and I here's what I can half go off. So I was like, I'm a dancer, I'm an actor. Then one day, and this is how I'll speed up the timeline now. Every new discipline came in as a complete surprise to me.
Really.
So, and it always came in when I was having a catharsis or a breakdown
Mm,
of my world, of my, earth
yeah.
world, my 3D world.
Yeah.
And when I actually would let it happen. So there was one year where I was supposed to go back to mass, like for Easter, I think it was, and I didn't want to go because of all the turmoil and everything it
Yeah.
brought up. Um, and but I was like, I have to go. I felt so guilty about not going. I was walking to the subway to get to the train, and one of those like just you can't stop crying. No
Oh,
matter you're just
yeah.
melting out of yourself in public, and you wish the earth would swallow you up. Started to happen. I was on
Aw.
the train. I got all the way to wherever I was, Grand Central, to get the proper, like to get the Amtrak or whatever, and stood there and just, I couldn't stop. I knew people were looking at me, and I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to kill my mother, my grandmother, and my sister. I got to go
You
back.
knew you couldn't do it. Yeah.
And I went back home and I was like, I think I'm depressed. And I just pulled down all the shades. And I was like, if I'm depressed, fuck it, then I'm going to
Then
do
you're
it.
going to just go all in.
I'm going to go all in because I've been fighting it for too long.
Mm,
And if
mm.
I'm a piece of shit that doesn't visit her family, then I'm going to just be that.
So then that's, yep.
And I pulled down all the shades. Nobody in town knew I was around. And that was such a
Oh,
relief.
yeah. Yeah. Because otherwise there'd be everybody worried and,
And calling.
yeah.
And I just pulled down all the shades. got into bed and wept, but also felt relief with the guilt. And I just wept and wept and wept. Though that was like 3 straight days. I didn't answer the phone.
Wow.
This was before cell phones. I shut off my like answering machine.
Answering machine.
And I just cried and cried and cried, stayed in bed, felt sorry for myself. Within those 3 days, I had a dream. The dream was a song sung to me from the fabric of the dream. So the trees, the sky, the stars, that which was the consciousness of the dream. It wasn't like the trees had mouths. It wasn't like a cartoon, and I woke up. It was lyrics, it was music, it was rhythm, it was instrumentation, it was a full song. And I woke up and I was like, oh my God, that's an amazing song. And I had a little handheld tape recorder, like recording monologues or something. And I sang it into it. And I found a notebook and I wrote it down. And then I was like, and I was super hungry. I like hadn't eaten in 3 days. I got Ben and Jerry's and a burrito.
Good choices.
Like, this is depression food. Fuck it. And I just tore at it, fell back asleep in like a food coma, woke up into another entirely different genre of a song, which to this day I still haven't recorded, but I love, and I think it's a very good song. And I think it ties it ties directly into the poetry that I write now. And then I just sat there and I felt bliss. I felt joy. My tears changed to love. I felt a sense of God.
You're going to
And
make me cry. Wow.
never in my life, even though like I went to see bands and everything, I love bands. I had friends in bands who played and boyfriends in bands, whatever. I never wanted to be in a band. I didn't play any instrument. I could sing kind of, but I never, it wasn't like a
follow
secret
it.
fantasy. I never tried to write a song. It always seemed like a super cool art form that I had like it was a mystery. And I was like, it's so cool. People can write songs. I wonder how they do. That's super weird. Blammo, woke up, a song was written, done.
Had you always had that kind of dream? Had you had that lucidity in your dreams? Because you talk about that.
On and on, yeah, but I didn't explore it, but I did. I was having lucid dreams and visitors within my dreams the whole time I was a child.
Wow.
And they stopped when I was a teenager. And in 2018, when I woke up,
second time,
the beings that visited me in my dream state as a child returned.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And then I was lucid. And they still come now, but now I have them with me all the time because now I have learned to use my lucid dreams or learning dreams. There's a whole vocabulary in them. I'm curious to know what your relationship is with your dreams. And if you have this and do this, I'll bet you do.
Well, I really don't. I don't. And some of it might be all the cannabis I smoke, but I have dreams. I do have some intense dreams, but I have not ever had really that kind of access. My awakening was very visceral in this realm. You know, it wasn't related to any dream state. I've never had that. So I'm fascinated by it. I think when I was younger, I had lucid dreams, you know, where I was flying and probably, you know, far more intense than I even remember. But I don't know when that stopped or and I've always, I guess now that you mention it, I've had some really intense dreams, but in the last 10 years, not as much. So, you know, I do a lot of meditating and, kind of opening myself up in different ways, and downloads come in different ways, but not that way. So I find it just, you know, I've wondered if there, you know, when you're talking through like the divorce and how that kind of brought you, that was like a first awakening or whatever, where you kind of started listening to yourself in some way. You know, I didn't really have I was so programmed for so many years that it took like a huge event to boot me into what I always knew I was. Like, well, you're talking about kind of that person that like, you meet somebody and you think you connect with them, you feel that soul energy, but they don't get that at that, I think we connect with people on a certain level and they're not there yet. Some people are like where, like you, or, some of my friends from that are in that space, you meet somebody and you just get this energy about it, but it's always been like to me like something awkward,
Yeah,
like I
me
could
too.
see into them, and it's like almost this intimacy that I feel kind of awkward about. And I can sometimes tell they feel a little, but most of the time it's me, and I'm like, oh, I guess I went a little too deep with that. Like I'm always like, oh, I'm just so open, and I just say, I think I have these connections, and I think everybody connects at that level. I've thought that over the years. I've learned not so much. you know so no, that's a kind of a segue, but the dream, yeah. So that's when you started with that was like you're like into poetry with the music, or
Poetry, I wrote poems when I was a little kid, and I have an
okay.
uncle who was a poet
Uh-huh.
and had a poetry column in a newspaper in New Jersey and encouraged me. But I wrote like little kid poems.
Yep.
And I read all the time. And then in high school, when the divorce started happening, I found poetry, and I found the New England female poets, Sylvia Plath
Oh,
and
that's where my
and
first and Sexton.
real Sylvia
Yes.
Plath and Sexton. And then I read about their lives, and I was like,
Oh my
so
God,
you
so
can
did I.
be you can be a poet and a woman, but then you have to commit suicide. Uh,
I related to that darkness they had because,
Me too.
oh man, yeah, that was, yeah.
I remember reading some Sylvia Plath poem, and I took out all of her books from the library. Like any self-respecting like lit girl in high school, any sort of like artsy girl in high school goes through Plath, Sylvia Plath,
Yep.
and Sexton Stage. And I just I it opened me up to the visions that I had inside. I didn't have terminology for it. I didn't know that what that was I was a visual I'm a visual thinker, or however that, like, I see things and then I describe what I see. And I didn't realize that those types of visions were mystic and were
Artistic and
interdimensional and were psychic, because that's never been a word or a world that I've kind of liked
yeah,
very much. So
same.
I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, this is what art's about. And I was right. It was metaphor, but there was this visceralness to the metaphors. And I remember like reading a Sylvia Plath poem and then going into a fugue state and just like letting visions sort of come to me versus manufacturing them and thinking into them. They would just kind of come, and then I would describe them, and I was like, oh my God. For a while I was like, I'm Sylvia Plath reincarnated, and I
Ah,
wanted to read all about her. I had that with Martha Graham, and then I went and studied Martha Graham started to come to me in dreams, and I was like, when I moved to New York, and I was like, who's Martha Graham? And then I was like, oh, she was a dance. I knew she was a
dance.
dancer,
Yeah,
but I didn't really know. Like, I learned some of her moves and stuff when I was studying dance, but I didn't really know.
yeah.
And then I went to the Martha Graham School and learned some of that, but I read about her and became just steeped in her the way I became steeped in Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton when I was younger. So I liked poetry. When I
Mhm.
first went to college, I was in English and theater double major. And when I was studying English, took all these poetry classes, and I had some poetry mentors at the University of Hartford who encouraged me. So I had some encouragement.
Mhm.
I
That's
really,
important.
I Part of me regrets massively letting that go, because what I had were mentors, and I have not had mentors since then.
There's a reason for that.
There is, right? Like, if I had stayed on that track, I would have been, I was set, I could have gone down an academic road. And believe me, I've spent years damning myself for this, being like, you idiot, you could have at least had something on paper that meant something, that could show somebody you did something
Right,
right.
right, right,
And
right.
maybe
Not
you
this
could
like
get a
6-page
job.
resume of like this and that and this and that. Well, that's what I have.
Do you have an English background,
No.
writing back?
Well, I've always written, like since I was a young child. It's always been a way I processed. I wrote poems when I was little. I have a like I kind of like write the way I think, and people have responded to that. I've had some encouragement. I haven't written anything like that's really been published that much. But I went to college and a religious college, and my parents were like very in the Christian realm. So I went to Wheaton College in the Midwest, which is it's like it's supposed to be a good Christian college. And I kind of got on a track there, and I ended up, and I really kind of pulled away from my inner knowing, because I was so following the program. And so I ended up starting out, I was also very into running. So I ended up in exercise physiology. Now, like you say, if I had to go back and do it over again, but I think there's a reason for it, absolutely. But I kind of had this knowing that like literature and writing, and I should have been like shoulda. I That's where I thought, like I felt like in my heart that's where I was. But I was always like, well, this is more practical. I can go get a job with this. Turns out not so much. But and then I ended up getting engaged at age 20. Yeah, and getting engaged and getting married, because that's what you did at this college, because you weren't supposed to have sex before marriage. It was all the rules. Like you had to sign this pledge when you went there that you weren't supposed to do anything bad. Yes, it's no dancing, no drinking, no
Oh my God, you
premarital
went to
sex.
Footloose University.
Exactly.
Oh
Yes.
my God.
Yes. And even though my
No dance.
parents weren't that
Was it
rigid at all,
what
yeah,
was it,
dry.
dry camp?
I didn't drink at all until, yeah, until let's see. Well, till I turned 21, really. And um yeah, yeah.
You strike me as super badass, so
Uh,
I'm surprised by that.
well, I became badass after I got married. Like I realized at a certain point that I didn't, it's been a slow process of realizing. I have this like intense programming just that's so deep, and just from family stuff, my dad's family, my mom's family, just different dynamics that just has programmed, just so programmed to go against my inner knowing for so very long. I feel like it's really been until in the past 10 years that I've really felt connected to myself in any way and liked myself. So that's kind of a segue, but what was your question?
If you have a literature
Oh
background,
no, so I don't really. I'm just always writing. Um, People encouraged me. I had a really close friend. She's like, Jill, you're a writer. That's what you need to do. That's what you're good at. And just putting that down, like I don't know how, I can't, afraid of it almost. And so then
well,
yeah.
no, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's pretty much, yeah, I think that. So I didn't have that background, but always doing it, reading constantly reading, exploring. Like you said, Sylvia Plath, I did that. I read everything they wrote. I mean, I carried around the book Ariel in my purse. I
I
just
carried around Ariel in
Yeah,
my
you
backpack
did?
for like years. Yes.
Years. I had it, and recently I gave it to my daughter. My youngest daughter is writing poetry, beautiful poem. She's got that in her. And and it was just such a beautiful thing to be able to hand that book of poetry that was all raggedy to her, and have
Oh
her
my God, I'm gonna
appreciate it.
cry. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so poetic.
I know. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a meandering path, Lisa. But I don't, like I said, I don't have any formal training. I pick things up along the way, but gosh, it's all
You're a reader.
self-taught.
I mean, well, that's just what I
Just
noticed through
reading.
our communication, through the way you write on Facebook, and then the way we've communicated in emails. One of the ways that I've made my living, which seems to really be dwindling right now, is as a copy editor. So people, proofreading and copy
Oh, I
editing,
suck at
copy.
that.
Really?
I'm not detail oriented. Yes,
Your writing is so good because
oh,
I
thank you.
read stuff. I have read stuff for a living to correct it for publishing houses and for like the banking firms and all kinds
Wow.
of weird for schools. Like
Cool.
now there's a lot of AI that does the
Oh
job
my
to
gosh.
do. So anyway, that's a different topic. Doesn't matter. The gods are gonna take care of me because they always have. That's changing. You know, there's gonna be a new way to make the coin because there needs to be. Or I won't need to because someone will give me everything. I don't know what it's gonna be, but
I am so,
I
I
have
think, yeah, I
I
love
have to
that.
trust it because I'm willing to work
Right.
and you're
It's
not
not
coming
like
in.
you're lazy. It's, or just
And I'm no
differently
longer
motivated.
afraid. I used to be very afraid of the dynamics because it soul crushing and it was devastating often to go into jobs and feel, you know, it was hard to go into jobs. But I devised different ways of working and now I know myself better and I know how to interact. So now that I'm not as afraid to work in different places because I know
Hmm.
how to kind of I don't know. I'm lighter. I'm lighter about it. Um, now the jobs aren't here anymore. It's like that
That is
funny
funny.
irony where
Yeah.
I'm like, well, something's going to happen. I wonder what the next thing will be, you
I
know?
love that.
But anyway, so I'm used to reading lots of people's writing for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And I got yours and I was like, oh, she's in the English program. Like she's an English major. We can just go because it's impeccable. And the way
Oh,
it's
thank you.
outlined, like you wrote that outline thing like that you sent me of the and I was like, oh my God, oh my God. It's like it was just like a book map. And I was like, oh my God, her mind is so chime like it's just like a Calder mobile, like it's so clear and it's lateral, but it's all connected. And I was like, she has the way I see that is having your two hemispheres in a really good conversation versus at
Yeah.
war or too far apart. Like lateral thinking, in other words, like you're but you're able to take your lateral thoughts that are way out here and loop them back in to a logic and a language that we all agree on and
Oh,
can
thank you.
understand. You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Yeah. I can do that. And yeah, it's nice that,
It's
yeah, I feel
confident.
like
You've got a
I
confident
do. I don't give a
advantage.
shit
Yeah.
anymore. I
Yeah.
think that's part of it. I'm not making there's no risk involved in me right for me right now, in terms of like putting stuff out there. And um I haven't published anything really other than my podcasts, and I've written blogs and stuff like that. But yeah, I think in your questions you said like your future or what projects, and I think that would be it, is to write, to kind of take that next step and write a book, or at least something that can be, published, or put old stuff together. Um, yeah. So
What
anyways,
got you to do podcasts? What inspired that in you?
Joe Rogan. I started listening to podcasts when I first got divorced in I don't know, 2013. Well, it was 2012, but I'd say around 2014, 2015, I'd go running, and I had no idea what podcasts were. I don't know how it happened, but I started listening to them, and I realized that people were talking about things that you didn't hear on the news, you didn't read anywhere else. And there was so far out in front. I've always been one of those people that's a little like, I'm not afraid to question that's the narrative, and things don't make sense. And this person out here is saying all these things that I never heard before, like guests he'd have on. I think one of the big things was he had guests on that talked about psych meds, and I'd been on psych meds as a big part of mine. When you said you didn't get medicated, I took the meds. I took meds for 20 plus years, except for pregnancy. And I always knew that it wasn't quite me, like there was something, I think it's just, again, no regrets. I had to go through all that to be here
Oh,
to say this,
they
but
help.
they
They
helped me get through, really intense stuff, but also not like kind of like a blunting and a numbing that I ended up using like addiction and substances to supplement, because I didn't feel like I couldn't access that part of me without like substances. So the two went hand in hand. But yeah, I listened to a lot of, I think he had somebody on that talked about coming off psych meds, like, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. I can do that. I've taken my kids up and off meds, and cannabis, I has been a medicinal tool for me. So I use that to help get off of these psych meds. And I learned about that from podcasts. And then I don't know what clicked, but I thought, oh, I wanted to talk about the experiences I was having with my kids that had this rare disease. And I felt like there was nobody out there talking about the lived experience of just the ins and outs of kind of giving voice to the patients, not instead of the doctors and all the people, but the people that are actually living with these diseases and what they experience day to day. And so I started interviewing my kids, and that was the first podcast, because my kids had, so those were my
Interviewed
early,
your kids. That's
and they were
brilliant.
beautiful. Yeah, I was like, and then I thought, well, I'm going to start interviewing other parents that have kids with this condition, and ask them about their experience. And it was just amazing. It was amazing. I'd have these parents on, and we met. It was just such a like therapeutic thing for me to connect with these people. And I realized that I could do it. Like I had no confidence. I remember like, I don't know how I wrote the first questions, but yeah, I kind of applied my writing skills to like writing questions and engaging with people. But yeah, it went from there. And it kind of has led me through these last 10 years. The podcasting. Anyways, yeah, I'm distracting myself because I'm
Because
trying to pull my thoughts together. But yeah, it's been
well,
I feel like it's been a gift. It's been a hand, just something I could grab onto. Like even like I let go of really trying to make money at it or anything. I just stopped caring. It had to be from the heart. And all that cringy stuff that with the branding, and I ended up getting two people involved with my TSC Talks podcast. This gentleman that I met through a disability organization, and then a good friend of mine that helped me like edit, and he had this real business like side to him. He'd been very successful. He lives in New York City actually, and he really was like, I felt like there's this that like ripping myself apart with this whole mechanistic, like you use that word, like just this very materialistic 3D, like, oh, we've got to do these things and these things, and we've got a brand, and we've got to just so cringy. And then I couldn't put myself in that box. I mean, we really tried to make money at it, the team, and ended up in the cannabis industry too, just because I interviewed somebody that had helped their kids with epilepsy and with cannabis. So I was like lit up. Yes. And so then I had started interviewing, I went in and I started interviewing all these, well, not all these, but some doctors and professionals in the cannabis industry that had experience helping their kids with autism. And I thought I was going to save my kids, get them off all their meds. Well, that didn't happen. But I tried. It's really hard when you've got a child that gets diagnosed very young, even in utero. 3 of my kids were diagnosed in utero, or 2 of them in utero, with this rare disease. And yeah, and it affects so many different organs of the body. And you know how our medical system is so organ related. It's not holistic. So and I didn't really realize all this until the last 10 years. And so they're so invested with this specialist, that specialist, this med, that med, to like take them off meds and just put them on cannabis was putting them at risk. I tried it with my son, and we were so close. I got him way down on his meds, and I had somebody. And the other thing is, it's not like you can go out and get a pill for cannabis. And it's also, I want to say, like, non-medical, like there's a lot of guesswork in it, and there's nobody that really knows exactly how to do
I didn't
it.
realize that.
Yeah. So anyways, my son started having seizures again, which is a big part of the condition they have. We want to keep
Can
them
you
away.
remind me of the name of it, the condition?
Tuberous sclerosis complex causes benign tumors to grow in the vital organs. So, and my belief is now that it's the vaccines that make it worse. Like my ex-husband has the condition, and he's a
Oh, it was
lawyer.
passed through him?
His dad had it, didn't know he had it till he was in his 40s and had a seizure. And then my ex-husband didn't really know, they didn't talk about it much. He didn't have too many problems. Well, he was already 40, was, had a career at Xerox. And anyways, yeah, I think our medical system has taken this condition and just exacerbated it with the
I'm
vaccine
not
schedule.
surprised.
And
With the separation of all the organs and all the specialists, it makes you sicker because you're spending all this time sort of puzzling together a dying system when you could
exactly.
be holistically looking. I mean, you can't just that mere description of what this disease is. I can't imagine all the specialists and all the different ways of treating something that you met, and all three children.
It's mind-boggling. I do everything like in pieces. So I broke it down, and it wasn't undoable. And there's lots of supports along the way and whatnot. But yeah, it's sad. It's a little distressing now because it's not like I can pull them out. They're in their 20s, and they've each had different paths. And but yeah, I just really think that that's what happened, is that their condition, their experience of this disease is far different than previous generations. And I'm not saying all the treatments that they get now are bad, or all the but I really think that we're not connecting the dots. Like, we're not, like, can we stop giving these kids these vaccines maybe, and see how that works, and see if they don't go into seizures at age 4 months. Like, distinctly remember, like, they're 4-month shots, 1, 2, 3, each one of them. That's when it started. They started having this really bad type of seizure that you have to stop, or the kid won't have a shit chance. And yeah, but
I'm
like,
too
literally, I
sorry.
went back through their medical records when I was moving, and I lined these things up, like their shots, and when they started having, and I'm sure there's other factors involved too. I don't want to just say, well, I do think the shots are bad, but anyways, yeah, that's when I really think that then you see a kid seizing when they're 4 months old, and you are going to grab anything you want, just anything to stop it. Help me, so running into the medical system, and meds, try this med, try that med, and neurology it's all neurological, and it's such a gray area. I've had doctors tell me that they are just basically guessing. There's so little understanding of the human brain. It's almost like art. So, and then, you get in that system, and you're chasing this good doctor and the better doctors. And it's just, yeah.
Even though the condition grows tumors in all different organs, it's neurological?
Well, because of the ones in the brain, those
Oh,
are
okay.
right. So that's where the most complications happen.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
in different organs like the kidney, there's definitely some real concerns, and some kids have more complications in different organs, but the brain, having tumors in the brain is the worst part. That's where they really have to. So that's where the focus is on the neurology one. Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, so that
Maybe
was
that's what your
quite
book
an
will be
answer.
about. Is that what you're thinking you would write about, or something?
The
It doesn't,
journey, yeah, kind of like, yeah, the coming
you know,
through that.
even as I said that though, I was like, or you could write a poetry book, because whatever you write, that's going to be informing it. That's going to be in it.
Hmm.
Like, you could even
Absolutely,
just
gotta be.
see what it is, and then you go write a prologue that says, this is what I was going through in my life. This is that, and
Ah,
that could, you could write a book of, you could do paintings and have long weird titles that are the poems, and call it the name of the disease, and then have a prologue that's an essay about it. I feel like I have an ability. I'm not a teacher. I'm not in the system. I went back to school. I quit school, then I went back because I had such shame about never finishing my
Really?
degree. Yeah, it followed me. I went back to school like at 43 or something.
Wow.
Just to get my, everybody
Did you
thought,
get
you're
your,
supposed to be going back to get your PhD at that point, right? That's how, but I did a program at SUNY where they take it's kind of run like a graduate program because you can
uh-huh.
take your world experience, because there are a lot of
Oh,
people like me, it turns out, and you make it into like basically a graduate thesis, and you prove you have like the points that you have to hit in order to get a degree. Like, there are all those charts and everything. Like, do they demonstrate this, this, and this? And then you get passed to the next grade. Like that still happens at the
okay.
undergraduate level. So I had to hit certain points, and I worked with an advisor, very much like in a master's or
Yeah.
PhD
How
style, but it was
cool.
still for my bachelor's. And I put together whole packets of like, this was the young adult novel that never got published that I wrote. This is what I learned. Da, 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 da. This is the play that I wrote. This is the musical that I wrote. Here's where we produced it. Here's what I did to do this.
Wow.
And I had to do
So you
comparative.
take your life stuff and
I took my
I
life
love
stuff.
that.
I had to prove it all. I had to do all
Yep.
these packets. So
Which
you're
I'm
just
sure was a lot of
defending.
work.
It was a ton of work, and
Yeah.
you're like defending your thesis basically. But this was just for
Yeah.
my bachelor's degree, and in English, in creative writing, and with a
Uh-huh.
dramatic slant, and all this. And I had to like write the first 50 pages of a next novel and an outline for it. And so I learned how to do that, and then that. But so why am I talking?
Well, maybe because you went back at that age was probably better because you were more engaged and got more out of it than you would have if you
Oh,
had pushed yourself.
it was one of those things
It-
where I was like, oh, youth is wasted on the young. I get it. College education is wasted on the young. I get it.
So true.
Also, we age. So, but now I'm like loving everything the teacher assigns. And I love that I can, I love how, because I
Yeah.
can focus and I've got more context for it. But I also thought, okay, well, now I'm in it. I've gotten back into learning and writing essays and all of this stuff. Should I just keep going and get my master's so that I can teach? And I didn't do it because it was so expensive.
Yeah, I believe that.
Um, I I'd have to like still be working to like, you can't, I'd have to pay my rent or move to like,
It's just,
Connecticut to go to Yale drama if I got in. And then if I was going to do that, was like the shortest degree to get. So I was like, well, how can I do this in the shortest amount of time and then be able to pay it back? You can't pay back any of these degrees for
oh no, you just froze.
school degree. Then you can get a job and blah, blah, blah. But so I went back to school thinking, well, maybe I'll become like an English teacher or a dramatic writing teacher or something like that at the college level. It will make me a legit adult.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't legitimize this. Also, I started to see how hard it was to get a job. And then some of my professors, older than me, have their masters, were also copy editing on the side because their teaching salaries and then their debts and everything could. And I was like, oh, this is such a broke ass system. Punk rock Lisa came back alive. And I was like, I will destroy a guitar before I will go. Like, no, this is so bullshit. No, no, no. If this, and then even my own school that I got the degree in, then I was like, so can I get a job like TAing here, or can I like tutor here? The salary, the hourly for teaching at the very school that just gave me this degree was half of what I can make doing private catering for people, because that's one of the
Wow.
jobs that I do. I go
Yeah,
to
you
people's houses
mentioned
and
that.
like make dinner for them and shit.
That's
And I was like,
cool.
yeah, it is cool, but it's good, and it is cool. It's like
Well,
I
yeah.
can leave it there. I don't bring it
Yeah.
home. Like I just go, I'm in beautiful homes in New York. Like I'm in Architectural Digest penthouses to do this.
Wow.
So that's super cool. And I work with really awesome people. And it doesn't take up my brain space and all that. And I was like,
Right.
so I never went forward in teaching, but I feel now like, oh, I could help younger people or new
Mentor.
people and mentor people. So that's all of that to say about
Oh,
your
thank you.
if you
Yeah.
want to. And that's, you know, that stuff you were saying before about having all these like layers of connection. That's like, you know, all this stuff about the person and you kind of don't know which thing to say because you feel like they sense it anyway. And like you have this X-ray goggle kind of thing going.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know what to say. I have a younger brother and sister, and I can be very bossy, maternal, like, here's what you need to do.
Right.
Or hearing them in struggle. I don't have children, so it's like my closest thing to, and like my sister's 9 years younger than me, so there's a
Oh, wow. That's a big
gap.
range.
So to not go, oh my God, you're doing all of this and you're in pain and I hear you struggling. Here's what you need to do. Nobody likes that. And
No,
it's so hard to not do.
it is hard.
Or to now know, oh, okay, I see, to give myself like a quiet space and just listen and know which bit of advice or steering is the right bit.
That's an
What is
art.
her soul asking for now? Not, oh, I had a learning dream where a guardian angel or which appears as a cheetah, blah, 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 blah. You need to go study. No, she doesn't. I needed that. That was my thing. What she needs is to be listened to
To be
and
heard. Yeah.
be heard. And something is going to come forth, just like when you're writing poems, just like when you're making pictures. I'm nowhere. There's this thing coming through, and I'm a pen in the hand of whatever God and whatever geometry, which is conscious, everything is conscious, is wanting to come be born. And I'm the shape pen, and I'm the canvas, and I'm the vocabulary page, and it's picking from me, and I'm just writing down what it's picking, whatever the consciousness is. And I've had to learn to be as quiet and present with other human beings, especially the ones I love and hate, and be as like present and human with them as I am with my work. And
That's hard.
I didn't even know that till I just said it.
I love
That's my
that.
lesson now. Because I'm like, I've learned over since my awakening, which by the way, I had never taken a picture in my life, not even on a vacation. I hated taking pictures because I always felt like it took you out of the moment. I never had a camera.
I hated it too for a long time because my
And now,
parents did it all the time. They always had a freaking camera or movie camera.
you're like, are we on this lovely hike or are we
Are we taking
remembering that we're
pictures?
not going to be on this at another moment?
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Oh,
Yeah.
it just makes this like, oh, now we're taking pictures and that's so dull. And then I had this awakening. I was basically married. We never got married, but just to fill you in a bit.
Yes, yes. I'm not really. Yeah.
And then we broke up, and that I never thought we would. And that was the awakening for me.
That's
So
tough.
then one day I was out and I had my phone and I just took a picture of something. And I was listening to Lisa Transcendence Brown at the time. Do you know who she
Okay.
is?
Yes, I do. I do.
I would listen to her. I had no idea what she was saying. I was like, she is mental, but I think I know what she's saying. She has a crazy accent. She's nuts. She's in Hawaii. She's talking about crazy shit. But I believe her. I trust her. There was a
truth frequency.
her truth frequency. And I just would listen to her. And one day I heard her say, you're going to start taking pictures. And you're not going to know what you're taking pictures of. And then you're going to go home and look at it and you're going to see God and the angels and Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and you're going to see this in the spirit and whatever the hell she talks about. And one day I was looking through my pictures and I started to see. And I started to take pictures of the sun and just like whenever I felt like it of
yes.
That was, and then that was the beginning of all these photos. So I never wanted to take a picture. I never wanted to write a song. So in each of my awakenings, a new vocabulary came back online. And I think that was all being given to me when I was a child through the lucid dreams I was having with the beings. And then they go dormant, I think, to protect them for a while.
That makes
Otherwise,
sense.
they'd get contaminated, or we'd give them out to the world to people who didn't understand them, and it would hurt us. And I think it gets protected, we get protected. And just like, in puberty, certain things in your body wake up. You don't need to tell them to, they mostly work. It's like, I think it's like that with these
Divine timing, kind of.
divine timing things.
Like
Yeah.
it's all the pieces are there, and then you're just kind of finally, or not finally, but when the timing in God's timing or whatever you
God's timing,
find them,
it opens
and
up, and then
it's a painful process at times.
otherwise
You
you
have to
wouldn't
let
do
yourself
it.
be broken. Yeah.
You break. You, I guess the liminal. Oh, that's why I thought you lucid dream, because if you wake up in the morning and write, that is what starts for me. That really starts to encourage the liminal and stretch it out and strengthen it. If you write like right away when you
I
first,
don't do it right away, and I'm thinking maybe I should. I get
if you
up,
want to, if you feel like you
yeah,
can, I mean, and you want to.
possibly. I just have to change a few things. Like I get up, what do I do? Oh yeah, I've been taking baths in the morning since I had
Oh, that's
shingles. Yeah, instead of
yeah.
doing
So
my exercise routines and all these like rigid things that I make myself do, I decided, I'm just going to sit in the bathtub and do my meditation,
awesome.
and
Oh, that's awesome.
just be
That's
a,
a liminal
yeah,
space. That's like water and air and earth all together. That's it too.
true, true. Yeah, so then I go down and right after that, and I do get, I'll read back through them, and I get so much guidance from looking back through my own journal entries. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, so
Do you
amazing.
ever do the year to year? Like, I don't know if you've been doing, because
Doing
is
it for,
that crazy?
oh,
Like you can look at the same week or the same date and it'll be like, oh, this is a very similar growth thing.
yes. I see
That's
the patterns. I was horrified when I look back. Like I saw that, like, I think it was maybe last year, the year before, I'd been thinking and doing almost the exact same things. Like it was an awakening for me. And then 2024 was a complete like explosion. Like nothing has been the same. But yeah, it was almost like I was judging myself. And I don't think I should have been in any way, but it was kind of like, yeah, you're really doing just the same patterns, and you're in this. Yeah. And I remember like I probably prayed about it, or so yeah, it's been, and journaling only started let's see, probably like since COVID, but it's been a gift. And
that's been a blessing from that stupid disease,
right,
virus, whatever the hell it
whatever.
was.
I think yeah, I have all my
Whatever that thing
thoughts on
was,
that.
that was
They had to get the nano
nefarious.
stuff into us. That's what it was. It's a biocyber platform, literally.
Well,
And they
we're all
lied and said it
addicted
was this and
to,
that. Oh, I'm probably gonna have to cut that out for
we're
you too.
all addicted to all the, yeah, right. If you don't want to be completely, um, the interface that we're all addicted to now,
Exactly.
is bizarre. It's, and I had a prophetic dream about that
Did you?
a year before COVID was announced,
Holy
that there
mackerel.
would, I shouldn't even talk, like then you'll be blacked out probably if I say anything about it.
Oh,
I've got it written down, and it was
fascinating.
through the prince to
Wow.
be controlled. And it was, it's not the way I think. And it was a seeing, and I knew it was a seeing. And I knew that one of the things that we are to do, the light workers, which will one day, I believe, include everyone. It can include everyone, but
Yes,
the light
I agree.
workers are, you can take absolutely anything and turn it into light and turn it into love. And it's an inner job. And as long as, I'll say this, because I think this is very helpful, and this is something that I received from guides and dream state and meditative state very early on. And I've had to practice and practice and practice, and I have to keep practicing, because it seems silly at first
Uh-huh.
but if you just trust it, because it's really far. When I first heard it, I was like, well, this is just because I'm weak and I need something that's this
Right.
dumb because I'm the weakest link and I just need something because I need to trick myself so just to be okay in the world. Like any even that is like you're not good. You're not good. Don't listen to
Ugh.
yourself. You're not good. Everything that's the
Oh,
disease.
it is.
Anyway, the
Exactly.
thing I got was anything fear is lie. Anything FEAR, all
Oh,
capitals, exclamation point, and in quotes. So anything fear. So one of those overtakes, whether it's rumination, whether it's I'm not good enough, whether it's the government's watching, whether it's I don't
all
know
of
if you're
it.
finding up all of it, anything fear is lie. That's all you need to know. And I
That's
was given
good.
that
Thank you.
the very beginning. And I was like, the source that came from with an inner source is completely trustworthy. I trust that origin. And I was like, that being, that consciousness does not lie. And okay. And that consciousness speaks super simply, very directly. Like you gotta, it's almost like when you're in battle, it's just like, duck, run, but like it's gotta be really quick. And
Like you're
it's
not even thinking about it. Like it's
because
just,
that's how fast this comes at us.
oh my
And you
gosh,
see
yes.
the like TikTok and the everything is just 90 miles an hour. That's battle. We're put in constant battle state and like
Mm.
frontline battle state. So, but the battle is for our bodies, for our minds, for our consciousnesses. And as long as we can remember anything fear is lie, chant that to ourselves when we're in terror states, because another thing I learned was that when we have that sense of my mind is broken, my mind is taken over, I'm ruminating, I'm not thinking the right things, my head is overtaken, my heart, all those kinds of spiritual and philosophical puzzles we go through and physiological. I I have a sense now, I don't even know if I can describe it right. I think I can, that when we're even thinking that, it's not our mind. If we're in a state of overtake, our mind doesn't know. Even that is the thing that we've been programmed to believe is
Oh,
our mind. It's not our mind. Our mind and our heart are sovereign and holy and
mm.
light. They're from the sun and they're photons, they're little photons. That's not even our mind. That's this other thing we've been told is our mind.
Wow.
But our mind is a beautiful thing that can puzzle and spell and learn languages and make photos and reach out to a friend and make a pumpkin bread and like our mind can do lots of things. But that anything that's like fear and we're turning against ourselves, that's not even our mind that's not operating right. It's another thing that
Wow.
we even think that that's our mind. It's not even.
Oh, that's really well articulated. And truthfully, it lines up. I kind of like science and stuff. So like I listen to like different people and it kind of lines up with the science. Like there's this one woman out there, Sabrina Wallace, and
Oh, why do
she's
I
a
know?
she's real intense. She puts up all the science related to what's going on with everything going on. And she has this like really intense background. So and super high, super like off the charts smart, like way up, like just that kind of person that's not that I don't have that kind of intelligence, but I in that way. But yeah, like she explains that like through the science that's not that just what you said. I'm not good at pulling in like explaining science in any way, but it's
Me
I get a
neither.
knowing, like I get it, but I can't tell you
Right.
exactly
That's
what
why I was
I
like, I don't know
understood.
if I can even say this because I have not a science mind at all.
Yeah,
I do, but I read about
I
it.
like it. I'm
I
not
like
good
it
at
too. I'll sometimes listen to Brian Cox, or like he's an English physicist, and he's
uh-huh.
got a really like mellifluous voice. And I'll sometimes put a video on of his as I go to sleep at night, because I'm like, I don't understand anything to take like a second grade science test. I would fail it.
I
And
probably would too.
but if I listen, but when I go into my liminals, when I'm just consciousness, when my body's left behind and I'm consciousness, I become an atom. I become I'm seeing all these geometric things. The
Wow.
geometries are telling me stuff about themselves and their weird, and then I make shit when I wake up. Like, I don't know what it is, but I know that it's, and then sometimes they'll give me words, and I'll see words spelled out, and it'll be like mitochondria, and it'll be a whole shape, and they'll show me something, and I'll like,
Yeah, that
I
does come
remember.
through in your art.
Yeah, I'll be like, I remember mitochondria from high school. I remember failing a test about mitochondria. Let me see if,
Yeah,
and
right.
it'll be right. Like this information that I get when I'm in the conscious field, when I'm just back to consciousness when I sleep, is always right. So then I put it into my language, which is like
Mm.
abstract and poetry, and I understand it the way I understand it. And I mean, we haven't even gotten to trees. That'll be another conversation. But like the
Oh,
trees will take me into themselves, and like I'll have these lucid dreams where I'm like friends, the way human beings understand friendship, with a tree asleep. And now I'm friends with them in real life. And I'll walk past, and then suddenly I'll hear
oh,
something, feel something, get
really?
colors, be like, what the what? And have to write stuff down, and won't it, half the time I don't know what the hell it doesn't make any sense, but I just write it because it
Yep,
doesn't matter. It's just for me, unless I choose to share it eventually.
sure.
And then sometimes days down the line, sometimes years, I go back and I'm like, oh, what that tree said was right on. I needed to catch up to the tree's knowledge,
Wow.
kind of translate it, and there you have it. And that is how this poetry photon understands science. But I'm really dumb in
Yeah,
sciences,
me
and
too.
but I don't, but then I'm not
Not really.
another way. I mean, like I always say, like a peregrine falcon is studied by aeronautical engineers in order to create, airplanes.
But the falcon doesn't know that it's,
Falcon doesn't know.
and what was it? Something about the altar, you have to fall, you have to,
Oh,
but you had this experience with the
oh, I
tree.
actually have pulled up a couple poems in case it came up to read.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
one of the
let's
poems
do
I
it.
pulled up to read.
Really?
Yeah,
That's wild. I heard you read it to Todd,
I
and
forgot.
I
I
was
was like,
like,
have
it
I
just,
already read this somewhere? But I pulled up four poems, and I was like, maybe we'll read them, maybe we won't. I don't even know
I
if
would
these are
love
the right
to.
ones. And I was like, well, it'll come up if one of these is
Right.
right, or she'll be like, oh, I really like this poem, or she'll read a poem. I like hearing people read my poems too. If you ever want to read, if you want
Really?
to read one that you like, yeah.
Oh, I'm
I would
afraid
hear
I'd
it
read
in.
it. Yeah, I got that fear thing in my head.
You want to
That
break
thinks
through
that,
it or not? You don't have
sure,
to.
I'll break through it. Yeah.
Um,
So how are we going to do this? Yeah.
Let me see if okay, I'm gonna try something.
Okay.
I know we can like share screen,
Oh,
but
yeah. Yeah. I can share a screen if you can.
if I pull up Learning
Actually,
About Altars, that's the poem. If I pull up,
learning about altered
I don't know
people.
if this is the one that I read, because there's nothing about a
Okay.
tree in this one.
Well, it wasn't, yeah. You tied it in with the
You were
tree.
saying I was talking about,
You were, yeah. That's too bad that I didn't have more
you know
detail on
what?
that.
When I was having that conversation with Todd, the trees had just become conscious to me. Like
That's what
I
it
was
was.
I wasn't someone who was like, oh, the trees are talking. I like liked everything, but I was into like animals came to me in dream state, and I had that kind of thing. But I never had a tree thing or a plant thing or anything like that. And then suddenly I did.
Yeah. And the way you
And
described it was amazing. And somehow you tied it, I thought you tied it in with the poem, but
I
something about,
probably did. It was probably this tree that for no reason, years and years ago, long before I, called I had the awakening kind of year, which was 2018 for me. I just there was this tree I would pass on my walk or run in the park, and I just called it favorite tree because I just loved this little tree so much.
uh-huh.
And then one day it started to die, and it died.
Oh,
And then one day I dreamt, and then this is now within the awakening. I was like, oh no, please, you can't die, you can't die. But I knew it was because I knew I was dying. So, I was already walking in two worlds because that was the first year of my awakening. The tree started to die. I was like, you can't die. And then I was like, no, it is dying because it's my favorite tree and that's how things work. And then I dreamt of it in a lucid dream. And that's when
yes.
lucid dreaming started happening, where wherever I was in the day, it would then show me myself where I had just been walking and what I was. So there was like, you're running down your path, you see the tree, there's the plot line. And then it was showing me everything else that was going on that I couldn't see.
Wow.
And what I saw then was that tree, its consciousness. I don't even remember how it appeared. I don't think it wasn't like I saw a ghost come out of the tree or anything like that. It was like and I didn't see the tree get up and walk. There's never anything cartoonish. It's an essence thing, and it's like beyond sight, but and the tree was so happy. This younger tree that was at the edge, this tree is like behind a fence on this path, so I could never touch it. But at the edge of the fence, there's a tree that's like its same type. And it was like a sort of olive ficusy kind of thing. And
Uh-huh.
it's Prospect Park, so a lot of the trees aren't indigenous to here, but they were brought in. So, and they thrive and whatever. So, but there's a tree just like it, and it was closer and it was younger. It was like narrower, but I could touch those leaves, and I would always touch those leaves. So in this dream, the dying tree tells me this is its grandmother, that young one. That's the grandmother tree. And it's overjoyed. And the grandmother tree, which on earth is younger than the tree that died,
Wow.
is showing me the evolution of the tree, the evolution of me, and the tree and I have somehow become one. And I've enabled the tree's consciousness to experience life through me as a human. And now I will be able to understand more of the trees around me, because this tree has changed from its tree into its human who loved it and kept noticing it.
Oh my
So I
goodness.
created this relationship, and I saw it come in, and then the next day I'm on my path in the park,
Uh-huh.
waking up. Suddenly I start to see, like a video game, like where all of a sudden it's like poing, 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 like hundreds of trees that are that species. And I'm
Really
recognizing them as relatives. I'm going, oh,
unbelievable.
oh, oh, oh. And ever since then, I'm just like, wait, I'm a tree. And I'm noticing trees up high. And I had this joy of being able to move, because the tree that tree was like aching to die. So I didn't need to. I was sad, and the sadness is part of it because it's a part of love. Grief is a beautiful,
Mm.
beautiful teacher, um, and part of love, and it helps carry us through. And now this tree was like, oh, I'm so sick of being a tree. I want to be able to move. So the tree was getting to move and visit in
True.
a different way.
Wow.
That was my wake up with the tree. I just liked this tree.
That's amazing. That's just, yeah. And I get that. I mean, I haven't had quite that visceral of an experience, but um I felt like I went to this one trail in the woods where we used to live, like Oh, at least 3 times a week. And the trees, like there were certain trees I had relationships with, you know, and I'd stop before I left the park and I'd lay my body against this particular tree and like, yeah, like I'd drop into that consciousness for a little bit in that moment. And it was just such a I guess I would say grounding experience. And holy experience to be, yeah, but not quite to that degree. That's, I love that though. I'm looking forward to having that experience.
I'm very like, I'm very child. I think one of my like main archetypes is the puer, P-U-E-R, you know, like that sort of Tinkerbell child, the constant child. I think it's because I'm just like, wow, that tree's talking to me. Like I have these dreams that I have to say it's not a cartoon because it sounds like a cartoon, but the whole world, you know who you might like if you haven't discovered him yet? There's this scientist who's become sort of a philosopher and was ousted by the scientific community years ago, named Rupert Sheldrake. He's
Oh, I've heard the
English.
name.
If you find, I'll see if I can find videos and I'll just send you a few that
Oh,
you
sure.
like, because he's a big proponent. He's like in his 80s now, but he's been a big proponent of the morphogenic field.
Oh,
The
yes.
whole, and he was like laughed out of scientific
I'm
communities a
sure.
million years
And
ago.
turns out that
Turns
is a
out,
big
yeah.
component now. Yeah.
So, and that's what I was dreaming about, and I didn't have the word for years ago. And like the whole thing is talking to you. The dream sings to you. And anyway, so
Wow.
the tree, so in my experience, like I get like the trees are my friends, and it is kind of like it's Disney. I mean, the whole world, the trees start singing and talking to you, and now you're flying. Like, or it's also very shamanic, like when shamans and any sort of indigenous people go into meditative state and turn into a hawk or turn into
Mm,
a cat or whatever the thing is. And I just think, I think there's a lot more available to us, and
absolutely.
our actual brains are receivers, not this other thing we're told is our brain or our mind. Actual brains can do lots and lots of things, and once when we're resting, we go into our consciousness, and I think we can go into consciousnesses of lots of different aspects of life, whether it's like a stone which is alive and has a
Yep.
consciousness and sings, or it's a leaf, or it's a tree, or the earth itself, or a painting, or an old sweater that you love, or like everything has a type of consciousness. It's like almost dead or going 90 miles an hour, you know,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
everything. Anyway, you'd like Rupert Sheldrake. Should I read this poem?
Yes. Read the poem.
It's called Learning About Altars. There was once a great city. Everywhere you looked, there were altars. It was beautiful. We dressed for it. We learned how to make them with our eyes, altars. It's very hard at first. And once you get the hang of it, it's actually that it's soft, much softer than it seems, and has got more to do with hearing, and has got more to do with hearing your own pulse than you'd think was even possible. An altar is an action, my teacher used to tell me. It's the falling upon, not the eyes of the person
Mm,
looking, not the table or the candle or the field. It's the verb, not the subject or the object. Altars are like gerunds. Gerunds are verbs that end in ing and behave like nouns. Altars don't end in ing. They're more like nouns that behave like verbs, I said to my teacher inside with my thoughts, who immediately said, "You're right, they are." That made us all sit back quietly, our teacher too, and look at our desks. The sun through an open window bending across them, dirt under a fingernail of my left hand from planting a seed from a tomato, a pencil with a bite mark in it, a perfect eraser that didn't smudge. There was a big clock on the wall, and its ticks sounded like they belonged, like they were learning too, like they were students and we were all learning together. Then my teacher looked up at it in between ticks, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. The clock is also a teacher. How you can be a student and a teacher and a clock and its ticks. That was how we learned there. No one said anything really, but our hearts could hear their own pulse, and you could become friends within seconds.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. There's so much in that. That the falling upon was the really the key moment for me in that poem, and that I could relate to. But
You know what I even think sometimes, back to my like making things fun, child, like a kid playing, like describing that. So I saw and felt all of that and was kind of just describing my school, like
really,
in another, like, but like in another, on another planet, in another galaxy, in
yeah,
another
yeah.
dimension. And I'm at desks, and there are certain, and I'm just like, it, that's the voice of it. Like sometimes this voice comes through that's like, oh, my teacher said this, and then we learned this. And I was like, no, and then she said that, like the way a kid is. And then I go, oh, Jill likes it because Jill was in my class. Like that could be a truth too. We could have been in the, we might be in the same class if there's another dimension where this school is happening, which is in a future
Wow.
timeline to hear. I don't
Well, I
know.
visualized this the light when you talked about the light, the desks, and the words you use were very. I was able to put myself in that classroom. So sorry, I dropped some.
Maybe you
Yeah,
were there. Well, yeah,
maybe I
that's
was.
cool too, because it's like then the desk, you can see, oh, a desk is like an altar, and all these beautiful little things are coming together on it. Just like on an altar in a church or in a synagogue or whatever, you'll have light hitting it, and you'll have a candle and a book. And my desk, you know, the desk becomes an altar in the poem, and you have the dirt, you've got the tomato, and you've got the pencil, and all these little things, and the light hits it. But what actually is the altar is the whole, and no one's saying anything, but everybody's communicating and is in this state of beauty.
In the
And
word altar,
it's a
self.
beautiful word, isn't it?
Like I think of, yeah, like alter, like an alternate personality or an
Yeah.
alter. Yeah.
Because it's a place of catharsis, and that's a thing I'm really big into too, is that's something I realize. So there's like the liminal space and catharsis, and they're kind of, you know, hand in glove. And I realized, like, I used to think life is about catharsis. Every minute it's catharsis, catharsis. But I've since learned not for everybody. And it needn't be that way for everybody. You need some people to drive the bus.
Yeah.
You know? Not just be like,
And people to make the money.
you need somebody to make the money and build the house and
That's right.
like make the make the chicken that you can eat, you know, grow the vegetables. But everything can be a catharsis, and everything can be turned into beauty. And
Mm,
that's also something I learned for the very first time by reading Ariel. Like
really.
I saw that it, like she was writing about something horrific, and it was
Oh
the most
yeah.
beautiful thing. It was probably about blood or about, like, I don't know, but she was finding the beauty in it. And I think if you can get past being married to the pain, like a lot of comics stay married to the pain to keep making
Ooh,
it funny.
interesting.
A
Yeah.
lot of artists stay married. If you can go, oh, that's a, and not, you know, get addicted to it, because we can get addicted to fucking anything.
Oh
Like
gosh.
really get
I
addicted to
can.
catastrophe. Well, you know,
Yeah.
you mentioned that, and I have a friend, funnily enough, that you remind me of, and she's struggled with addiction in with substances as
Mhm.
well. And I have not, knock wood, so far in my life, had
Yeah.
that happen, except with sugar and rumination. Those have been my addictions. But I know addiction, but
You understand it. Yeah.
I thank God that that hasn't been one of my struggling learning fields, because I don't know how people do it, because I know how hard it is enough with my own ruminating thoughts and with fear, terror, and sugar. I cannot imagine it with anything stronger than that. So what a, do you ever listen to Dr. Joe?
Yes.
He
Dispenza.
says, I
Yeah.
love him, Joe Delaney. He
Oh,
said,
Joe Delaney. I thought you said Yeah.
oh no, Joe Dispenza is good too. Dr. Joe Delaney,
Yeah. Yeah. He's
he's hilarious. And he says he talks about his addiction journey a lot publicly.
He
So
does.
I think I'm speaking out of school, but one of his metaphors is like, you know, you're jumping out of the great beyond, you're jumping out of heaven. You're like, oh, you got to pick a card. You got to pick you got your good things. You got to pick one shitty one. And I was like, oh, addiction. I'll take that. That'll be easy. And you get down here, whatever you pick, you're like, oh yeah, I'll take that one.
Right.
Gotta
Like,
pick a hard one. And you always think it's going to be easy.
that's good. Yeah.
And I'm like, so far, but you be careful. You like, whenever I'm like, oh, I don't have, anytime I say I don't have a thing, kablam.
Well, that
I
was
get it.
shingles. I was like, I'm healthy all the time. I was telling my boyfriend, I'm like, yeah, I am. I was going on a rant about how, I took such pride in like all my holistic regimens and everything I was doing. Boom.
Yep.
Like 2 days later, I'm flat on my back, like the welts and the freaking like just this deforming thing. And yeah, I knew it. Like as the words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, I probably shouldn't have said that out
I
loud.
know it's like spell casting. And things are
It's happened to me
happening.
before too.
Me too. I think we have to be really, really careful because things are
Yes.
really fast. And as we become more awake to who we really are and shed more of the fear, we have to understand. It's like any sort of magic movie, like the kids are out of control until they learn their power.
Yep.
Like the kids are
Yes.
out of control until we learn our power.
That's good too. Yeah, I think that's what it is. We don't realize our power as, human, HUE. We have a hue, we have an aura, which is a biofield. When I think it might have been Sabrina Wallace that said that, but that clicked for me that we are not these just mechanical. I mean, I've known that viscerally, but we are not just these mechanical. We are just so much more. And yeah.
This is just like this is like we're here, we're physical, we're awake, we're physically focused here when we're awake. When we go to sleep, it's like putting your car in the garage and it has to rest. Its engine has to cool down and you're out there running around, like your body has to rest, your consciousness has to rest too, but it's out there learning a bunch of things and then it comes back. And that's my experience of sleeping. And I had insomnia bad for many years.
Did you?
Yeah, my brother was deployed to Iraq at the very beginning, and that's
Oh,
when it started. And I don't remember how I got out of it, but I did. But it was hell.
I've had some stretches of insomnia. It is. I'm
Hell.
telling you. I mean, if I don't get a
Really
good
did.
night's sleep, my days are it can be challenging. Or at least I wouldn't say
Uncomfortable.
every night a good night, but
It's like the main component to like making it through living. I can't believe I know some people that I found out recently, like this woman I've worked with for years. Hasn't she's had insomnia like her whole adult life. And I'm
really.
like, how are you?
How do
But
you
she
even
also
like
snaps at people all the time. And I couldn't stand her for a really long time. Like she was the bane of my existence. I wrote the nastiest monologues about her. And I was like, I'm going to do a show and I'm going to invite her and I'm going to be a character and I'm going to do all these monologues and it's everything I want to say to her. And
oh
luckily
my
I didn't.
God, that's
But then
funny.
I found out,
I've had people like that.
oh,
I
yeah,
get obsessive about them too.
I do too. It's
Oh,
sick. It's
it's
sick. They
sick.
take over. It's sick.
Yeah.
And then I
Oh,
think it's so funny. And I keep talking to all my friends about it. And you can be funny. It's funny a rant is really funny.
oh
But
yeah,
then it turns you sick. You turn into the person. It
exactly.
makes you sick. And even that, like the past year, I've been like, oh, I can't even make one sarcastic joke or side that I would have made a year ago because it
The
almost
rebound.
instantly rebounds and multiplies and gets taken out of context and hurts somebody and reflects poorly on me. And I'm like, and it doesn't feel good. Most of all, like it doesn't
Doesn't feel
feel
good.
as good and as funny as it once did. I'm like,
So true. That
oh,
that's like the up leveling of consciousness
it's
across.
crazy.
Yeah, and like you said, it's quick. It's so quick now
It
to
doesn't
catch
mean
it.
if you're like a badass and like funny and all this stuff, you like I love humor. Like I watch mostly comedies and I love humor, and I think I come from a kind of a funny family.
I
It doesn't,
bet.
if you stop being a dark asshole, it doesn't mean you're not going to be funny anymore. I mean, I obviously still swear. Some people don't think swearing is good. I felt free to swear with you.
Oh, I swear all the time. I did. Yeah, it's a luxury not to swear.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of Brits swear and New Yorkers swear all the time.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I don't swear in front of children. I think it's too,
exactly. Yeah,
but
I
I don't
can
know.
rein it in.
I can rein it in. Yeah. But do you want to read a poem?
I will. Yes, I would love to.
Anyone you want.
Okay.
Short, long.
I think I have your book pulled up and there was one there. Whoops. I don't want to minimize that.
I
Yeah,
don't
my,
mean to be all like usurp, like, oh, now you read my poem. I don't mean to be all queenie about it. I just think
no.
like I love it's such a treat for me to hear. And if you, I think you'll read it really well. And you were just like you were kind of nervous, and I'm like, oh, read it then.
Yes, yes. I just want I forget which one that I picked. Well, actually, why don't you pick it and then I will read it if I can get it up. Yeah, instead of me going through your book and trying to, I should have had it
You want a
bookmarked.
medium length one?
Sure.
Oh. Do you want to read the one that you said your mom likes, Wings?
Yes. Yes, that would be wonderful. So this is Wings. I've learned something about wings. It's simple. I'll bet children know it. If you see a butterfly working hard to shed a chrysalis nearly there, stand down. Do not help the butterfly. If you do, you will kill it. In its struggle to escape what once was cozy, it builds muscles and becomes itself. Nature's perfect timing. I'm in terrible pain. Do not help me. Parentheses, I am calling myself a butterfly, a monumentally dumb move, which could move anyone reading to such embarrassment for me, for themselves, for butterflies. You'll feel it, nearly impossible to resist the urge to save me from myself, but please, do not help me. I want to live. And I shared that with my mother, who had at that time was about to go in for some surgery, some cancer surgery. And
Wow.
he wrote back to me, I want to live.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
art saves the day.
It does. I know. It was just such a powerful moment. So thank you for that. I mean,
Thank you for
your
reading it.
poems are a gift. I'm telling you. Like this morning, I don't know, I woke up kind of in a low state and I didn't know how I was going to get myself past it. And again, I just have to surrender to I don't know, to spirit to walk me through situations and things that I can't control. And I somehow I opened it. Well, I was getting ready for our interview and I opened up your book of poems and all of a sudden I'm like tears are in my eyes and I'm in my heart and I knew it was going to be okay.
My
So thank
sister
you.
and my friend Dawn, and I think my friend Doug, they use it as an oracle. They just like, oh, my friend Max, like he'll just
Really?
use it as an oracle. They open it to a page. And I'm like, well, I wrote these the year and 2 years after these are what I wrote myself through that first year of awakening. And it
I can
was
feel that.
tremendous pain. Yeah. So if they can help other people, that's why I published it, self-published it with my friend Max. And
Wow. It's great. I recommend it. It's called
thank
Duet.
you.
And I will put links in the podcast. So
Thank
if
you.
anybody wants to explore that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have it open on my computer and it's been there for a while since we started connecting. So I do go to refer. Yeah, you want to read another one?
Yeah. The
Okay.
part of you that is eternal. The part of you that is eternal, that you or they have tried to reduce to an occasional sneaking suspicion, is what is called for.
Very succinct. Yep. Beautiful.
And
Yeah.
it's as simple as like it's what's called for, like in the sense like this is what is needed, but it's also like you were called to that tree that you just loved. I was called to my tree. I just liked it. And what was that about? You have to trust
You have
what you
to.
just like. That's the divine spark in all of us.
And taking that piece away, that part of you that's not you, that's saying, pushing you back into the program. Oh no, that
That's
doesn't mean
exactly, that's the
anything.
program. That's the
Mhm.
mechanistic program. That's there's no God, making fun of everything, conflating God, the divine mystery, the galaxies, what time and infinity is, every molecule, with religion. Like atheists who are like mocking God. I have some friends and relatives. Most of the people that I've known in my life in academia and a lot of my relatives are really, really proud atheists. And
Ugh.
I learned eventually to not hang out with them all the time, to
Yeah.
completely ghost everybody. But I learned at one point to go, oh, the only response to that is, oh, then you know what God is, because you don't believe in it. I don't even know what the fuck it is that I'm not believing in. So that's what my whole life is about, is discovering what it is that bully for you. You know what it is.
You've done it. Yeah.
You've done it.
Good
You
for
know what it
you.
is, and you've rejected it. But really, people are rejecting a tiny, small notion of a religious God. But that's not what, you know, who you were saying, you studied like physiology and
Mhm.
and all of that, and you thought it really should have been literature. I've had this sense that I really should have gone to like divinity school and studied all of that stuff for years, and like gone into that,
Oh, really?
and yeah. But then I go like comparative religions and learning all of that
Yep.
sort of thing and become like a sort of spiritual director kind of thing. I'm like, no, because you would be in a system, and I am
Exactly.
hardwired
To
to
not be.
to not be in that system. It's like I love musical theater and punk rock, and I'm always trying to like stretch that through and figure some way. Whenever I go, okay, no, you really have to buckle down and get into a system, I always explode out of it afterwards. I can't.
Same with me. Oh, that's so well worded. And it's been a struggle my whole life. I think I've
Yeah.
come to accept that my whole, leading up to now or whatever has been this inner knowing that that's not right, that's not right for me or for, or really for anybody. We just haven't figured that out yet. A lot.
Yeah, it's not
So
governance. I think governance is good and true. And when you've got a bunch of people, we need some governance. Like a ship needs a captain, and
yeah,
we
some
need
guidance. Yeah,
we need a chef, we need a mechanic, we need the bursar, we need different people to do different things. We need specializations. We don't need overlords, and we don't need controlling
top down.
of what
Yeah.
we have it, and we need beauty, and we need shepherding. And I don't know, I think we can do it on this micro level, and we can there always whenever there's war, there has to be a hearth. There are people stoking the home fires so that there's a place for the soldiers to return to if they are, make it. There has to be a place to return to, and that's traditionally the feminine is stoking the hearth. The masculine, whether it's in no, I don't give a shit what your physical form is, but the feminine principle is to stoke and keep alive and feed and clean and love and nurture. And the masculine principle is to go out and fight, whether you're a female warrior or a masculine nurturer, it doesn't matter.
That energy.
Female and male, and or combos and all that. And so we're in a strange state of war. Literally, there are wars all over the planet among humans. Literally, there are wars between states of ecology that we can survive in and states of ecology we cannot survive in.
So true.
We've and so I think those among us who are beauty holders and light workers and whatever you want to call what we are, it's up to us, as Amanda Lawrence says, like one by one we awaken in our own ways, in our own times. We must, and we get to stoke this hearth of beauty and of love, and keep reminding people of that. Like, that's what's called for, that little sneaking suspicion.
Don't put it out.
Don't put it out. So one little ember, just when you're lighting a fire, you've got that one little ember and you have to blow on it so gently and protect it from the crazy winds all around. We have to keep it. There are enough people reading and writing and thinking about the war story. We have to keep creating a different story.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's so, yeah, we should probably wrap this up, but
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like we could have a, all afternoon
100 more.
conversation. Yeah, we'll
This has
have to
been
do it again.
so thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you. This
Oh
is
my God.
what a gift. I really am grateful for your work
You,
and the connection that we've made. And
how do you
what else?
like Orange, by the way? I've never been there.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's far enough away from the like hustle of um the spreading metropolis of even Rutland where we lived right in the center of town. It's a farm town, but yeah, and I'm not saying, I know you live in a city, and I heard you articulate the beauty of living in a city to Todd, with the park right there and having the connection with the places you go. Like, you're almost more connected in some ways than people that live in suburbia are in the city. I mean, in terms
I'm
of,
way more connected to nature living in the city than I ever was when I lived in the
isn't that
country,
funny?
because I don't have a car.
Yes, that thing about not having a car, you're much more engaged.
You have to,
You
like,
have
people in
to.
New York have proper rain boots, proper raincoats, because if it is raining, we still have to get to the subway. Like, you have to engage with the elements in a way when you live in a city that you don't have to when you live in the country or the suburbs and have a car. But
So
are
true.
you more art so but you choose to do it because some people who live in the country choose to do it, and it sounds like you are, because you've got a lake near you.
Yes, we have a lake, and it's very rural. It's out. It's kind of a blue collar town. It's not like a wealthy area. I appreciate that. And but we're really close. I hate to say there's a Walmart nearby because I can't stand the principle of it, but it's convenient. So we're not that far from like civilization, but it's just like, I don't know. I feel like a breath of relief in some ways being here. I think it was the right move.
Awesome. That's
Yeah,
so
so thank
good.
you. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah,